So this is the first question I'm going to start with. This is a question that we've had quite a few times in the last couple of weeks, but that's okay. I'm a firm believer in the fact that if you are somebody who's either new to Bitcoin or not an expert in Bitcoin, the more you can hear things, the better. The more touch points you have, the more dots you can connect in your own head, the better off you're going to be. So this is a question that says, this is from Golden Banjo on YouTube. Says, so let's say I have a cold wallet that I've sent multiple transactions to over the last few years. I would have multiple UTXOs, correct? Yes. Every time you send any Bitcoin from an exchange to your own wallet, that's one UTXO. So it says, so sending the total balance to a new wallet address will condense it into one UTXO. Yes. So if you move all those UTXOs that you had, you send it to a new address, that's going to be one UTXO. That's considered consolidating UTXOs. So what advantage does that give you? Would I want to keep that address with one UTXO in it, or does it matter? Thanks, bud. Love the show. So let's talk about that. Two questions there. Would I want to keep that address with one UTXO in it, or does it matter? This is kind of what I would say, honestly. And this is what I have advised people to do before. And that's what I do. So think about your Bitcoin in different pieces. Don't consider it all like you have one Bitcoin. Let's start with that. Let's say you own one Bitcoin total. You never want to have that Bitcoin all together in one address or one wallet. It just doesn't make any sense. If you ever plan on spending that Bitcoin, it doesn't make any sense. And so you also have to consider the fact that if something were to happen, if you got hacked, all of your Bitcoin is in that single wallet, which would be pretty tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. And so the main drawback to that is, first of all, the risk of getting hacked and losing all of your Bitcoin. But the second risk to that is your privacy. So let's say that you do take people's advice on Twitter and YouTube, and you consolidate your UTXOs into one single UTXO. You think you're doing great. But when you go to spend that Bitcoin, if you're concerned at all with privacy, if you ever go to spend that Bitcoin, you're going to move it to somebody. And with Bitcoin, you're able to see every single part of that transaction. So even though they're going to be able to see your public address, the address that you're sending it from, and they're going to be able to look at that and see how much Bitcoin you have. So if you have a Bitcoin in one address, one UTXO, and you send it, they're going to be able to see that you have one Bitcoin. And that's going to put a very big target on your back, especially if Bitcoin gets to what we think it's going to be. Right? So what I would suggest there is I would put about 80% of your whole stack into one UTXO, one wallet, and just keep that forever. Maybe I think the theory I had was 88% of your total stack into one, but 80 works as well. Just go with 80 to 90%. Get that into one UTXO, get that into one wallet, and protect that with your life. You're going to have that forever. You don't plan on spending that ever, right? And even if you happen to, there are different things you can do with it, and there will be more that gets added in the future as well in terms of privacy advantages there. But from there, then you can split it into a few different UTXOs. You could have one worth 2 million sats, 1 million sats, 500,000 sats. And the one thing you really want to keep in mind here is that what are you going to need those for in the future? Because the more UTXOs you have within one transaction, the more it's going to cost you to send. That's basically what you're doing the consolidation for, is to save fees in the future. Because every transaction is just a bunch of data. And the more data you put into that transaction, the more it's going to cost you. It makes sense, right? Every block only has so much space on it for data. And the more UTXOs, the more you fill that up, the more it's going to cost you. So not only that, but you should also be considering different ways for setting some aside on the Lightning Network or on the Liquid Bitcoin network. But that's a whole different conversation. So I hope that helps. I think that answered the questions.